So good evening, everyone. Um, I guess the presentation itself shows what today's topic will be. But before I begin the class and everything, we'll have an interactive session. If possible, if you could switch on your mics and give the answer, it will be great. Can you all tell me, should the age of a juvenile delinquent be reduced to 16, or children below the age of 18 should be punished? I mean, should be considered as juveniles, or should the children below the age of 16 be considered as juveniles? Can I have an answer? I'll repeat again. Should the children below 18 be considered as children, or should the children below the age of 16 be considered as children related to juvenile delinquency? Can I have answers, please? I don't want this to be a one-way lecture. Can I have answers? Or if you're not comfortable in switching on your mics, you can just type in the message also.
Am I audible?
Yes, Charlotte. Please do.
Yeah,
Tell.
yes. My name is Charlotte, and I believe that, it should be kept as 16 years, not 18 years. They shouldn't be treated as, I mean, of course, the crimes are increasing, but, if the age is kept as 16 years, you're actually giving them a chance for refinement and reformation, because we follow the reformation and preventive theory in India. But what happens when the age is increased to 18 years is that that opportunity is taken away from the child. And it might be because of the circumstances that might have led that person to commit that heinous crime. For instance, in Nirbhaya, the juvenile was the person, this is my knowledge, as far as my knowledge goes. He is the person who has committed a lot of, he was the one who brutally assaulted and attacked the victim. But after 3 years, I think there has been a considerable change in his whole behavior. That is what I have gained from the newspaper article. So if you're just taking away that opportunity from a child, I think we are not, we are not giving any sort of justice to that child. That's what I believe.
Okay, Charlotte. So you're of the opinion that any child below the age of 16 should be considered as a juvenile, not 18. So 16 to 18 years can be
No, no,
treated as
no.
an adult?
The other way. The other way. I'm so sorry. The other way. Under 18 should be treated as a child.
Treated as a child. Okay.
Yes.
Can I
Yes.
have other opinions? Thank you, Charlotte. Can I have the other opinions, please? You can at least drop in a message also. That's okay. I see everyone is very silent. Can I have few opinions more, please? That's how the class would get interesting, because juvenile is something that looks interesting but kind of can be boring in nature also. So can I have some more answers? At least drop in your messages. There is one person who's put up, Chandana. From my point of view, juvenile delinquency age should be 16, ensuring serious offenders face punishment while keeping space for correction and rehabilitation. Okay, thank you. I guess none of you would give more answers, I feel. Uh, Today's class, we would be just covering as to what are the causal factors of juvenile delinquency, what is the history of juvenile justice related things, and probably by the end of this class, I would share a video link in the messages part, which I would want you guys to go back and just have a view about it. Maybe certain things what we have watched, what we have learned in today's class and the video might be a mismatch. but this is how the society is building children. I want you guys to have a view regarding that. So I would be sharing the link in the end of the class. So moving on to the introduction part, as we all know, any child or a person below the age of 18 who is into any unlawful behavior is considered as a juvenile delinquent. Now it is not called as a juvenile delinquent or juvenile delinquency, it is child in conflict with law. Okay. So if you look into the derivation part, the meaning of juvenile means child or not fully grown or developed. And delinquent is a word that is derived from the Latin word delinquere, meaning omit. Causes of juvenile delinquency, I guess most of us have a base idea of it. If you look into the cases that we have read related to juvenile delinquency, it is very clear. It is the environment, it is the family, which plays a major role in uh, these children becoming delinquents in the future. Okay, so the first factor would be individual factor. There are a lot of psychological disorders, which again have been spoken by many of the psychologists, psychiatrists, etc., wherein they state that conduct disorder, ADHD, that is attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, all of which can lead to juvenile delinquency. Okay, then there is something called as impulsivity. Okay, this is what is seen commonly among teenagers today, wherein they do not think about the consequences of whatever is their act. Rather, they do it because of their impulsivity. They just want that pleasure seeking behavior, or that what do you say, um, that feeling of doing things that please them a lot. Okay, that would be impulsivity. Substance abuse is something that is on an increase nowadays, which leads to juvenile delinquency. I'm sure each of you would daily find at least one news related to substance abuse that is related to children. Even though there are a lot of awareness programs being done near the schools, colleges, etc., still there is a rise of substance abuse that again leads to juveniles being delinquent in nature. Other individual factors would be development immaturity and lack of judgment. What happens is, most of the time, whatever moral values are being taught, they do not take it in a serious way. So that is why most of the children, they do not know what is good and bad. Only in that particular age, when you teach them what is good and bad, will they be able to differentiate between that and act in a way that is acceptable to the society. When that lack of judgment, when the development is not proper, when this concept of right and wrong is not processed properly into a child, chances of them being delinquent would be high, or at least when they become adults, there are chances of them committing crime. Okay, so that would be the individual factors. Next is family factors. That this is something that we have seen, including Nirbhaya case, wherein the all of the offenders did come from very broken homes, very poor environment. If you focus onto the juvenile aspect as such, he himself came from a very poor background. He did not have much of parental supervision. uh, his history showed he always got into fights with other people. He liked creating troubles. And also, there were few who stated that he would harass women whoever walked through past their colony or that place they lived in. Okay, so these surroundings as well as family factors also play a major role in a child becoming a delinquent. Okay, next, this is peer and social factors is something that is considered to be the major cause of juvenile delinquency. We all know most of the children, they tend to do things based upon peer pressure. Also, they want to join certain gangs. This happens in school also. Gangs can be good as well as bad. And in order to gain this popularity that is nowadays seen much in social media and all, they tend to go for negative publicity, tend to become this bad person kind of a thing, or join into bad gangs in order to gain popularity. Um, I guess most of you would have watched the movie Avesham. Yes, can I have an answer? Have you guys watched it? It's a Malayalam movie, Avesham. Yes. Okay, so what exactly did you see in that? Why did they want to be friends with the uh, person who's considered to be a local rowdy or a gunda? Can I have some answers? Did you guys find any peer pressure in that movie? Guys, either my voice is being delayed or you people are not able to understand. Can I get some answers? It's okay if you can randomly answer also. Did you guys see any peer pressure, as in, and also why did they want to become friends with that particular person who is a gang leader? Okay, one person hasn't watched the movie. I guess only Charlotte is answering here. The rest of the people, could you at least drop in a message? Your opinion? To get local support and to fight back. Yeah, okay. Because of the ragging they faced from seniors. See, if you look, one reason would be because of the ragging they faced from their seniors, but towards the end, they also wanted to become like that person, like that gang person, right? So basically, peer pressure as well as social factors is something that plays a major role in juvenile delinquency. Now, if you look into today's society as such, influence of media and social media is something that is on a rise. Every other 12-year-old, I guess from 10 years old itself, there are kids who have Instagram profiles, who are frequently on YouTube, who watch reels, shorts, etc. I guess that what do you say, that pattern is seen nowadays from among all children. This is something that has come up with more researchers trying to study as to how influence of media and social media has is a causal factor of juvenile delinquency. I guess nowadays few of the news that we read also state that most of them get inspired to commit crime from certain movies, or they want to they want to keep a role model as a person who is negative, who has a negative shade or a negative character, etc. Okay, so on a personal note, as well as on what I've read from research, I guess nowadays the main causal factor of juvenile delinquency is influence of media and social media. There are good things that media and social media give, but I guess now when it comes to juvenile or children as such, I guess there is a lot of negative factor that is coming up, especially in relation to social media. Okay, and the last factor is structural factors. I guess I don't have to talk a lot about that. Poverty and unemployment, lack of education, urbanization, slums, migration, all of these also play a major role. See, when we say lack of education, I guess it is before the rise in social media that we could look into lack of education. But nowadays, people who are educated, as in children who are educated, also commit crime. Okay. So when we look into the causal factors, we don't just look into the present society as such. From when juvenile delinquency was considered, or that concept was being learnt about, all of those factors from that particular time to present is what we are studying. Okay, so the causal factors of juvenile delinquency as such would be these four, with more focus to influence of media and social media. Moving on to the history and evolution of juvenile justice in India. I guess since most of you all are from law background, you would know that there is a Juvenile Justice Act, which was amended and all of those things. Okay, but then we look into how juvenile justice as such evolved in India, how it was in the pre-colonial time, post-independence time, and present, what is the situation. Okay. So in the traditional Indian society, children were treated according to the societal norms or the customary laws, as in uh, one of the major things of when we say the socialization process, wherein the children learn moral values, the what is normal, what is abnormal behavior, what is right, what is wrong. All of these things are being learned from our parents, from our neighborhood, as well as from our relatives, or if you can put it into one umbrella term, family as such. Okay. So the traditional Indian times, it was always the family that played a major role in identifying if a child is committing any mistake, punishing that child so that he gets to know what is right, what is wrong. So family and community played a major role. There were no much legal frameworks as such, and this idea of juvenile delinquency as such did not exist. Okay, even though children were held for criminal acts, they were not fully held responsible for those acts. Okay, it was usually the family that were put into scrutiny. It is because you guys did not teach the child proper moral values that he committed an heinous act or he committed a criminal act. Okay, so this was how it was in the traditional Indian society. Moving on to the colonial period, that is when the British introduced the Western legal systems, and children committing crime as such was considered as a distinct category. Okay, they were not treated as adult offenders. So, what were the key developments is what we are going to look into next. The first one is Apprentice Act 1850, wherein it was the first formal law which addressed juvenile delinquents. Mostly it focused on children who were into industrial employment. I'm sure most of you would be knowing during the colonial period, there were a lot of children who were working in industries and all of those. So mainly this particular act focused on those children who were employed in the industry as such. Okay. And they targeted children who were convicted of petty offenses, mostly street children as such, and they allowed the courts to place such children in vocational training or apprentice as such, basically kind of like, if you look into today's term, internship kind of a thing. Okay, so they were made to do vocational training or develop those skills so that once they go back to the society, they do not commit the same act again. Okay, so main focus here was rehabilitation through which they could develop skills rather than punishing the children. Okay, like I guess, like Charlotte mentioned earlier, children below the age of 18, maybe due to certain circumstances, they would have committed certain crimes. If you look into the Apprentice Act, as I mentioned here, most of the children were street children. So because they were not able to fulfill their basic needs as such, they had to commit small petty offenses. Okay, so one rehabilitation process could be either provide them with education or with vocational training. But most of the times, the colonial period, they focus more on vocational training, so that once that period of vocational training is over, they can get into industrial jobs as such. Okay, so but what one disadvantage as such would be, it focus more on industrial training than child rights or child welfare as such. Okay, so the next act under this colonial period is Reformatory Schools Act in 1897, which allowed the establishment of reformatory schools for children, especially under the age of 15, who committed offenses as such. And they were provided with lot of reformatory approaches rather than putting them in adult prisons along with adult criminals. Okay, so main aim of this particular school was to reform their moral and behavioral aspects and provide them with discipline as such through education. Okay, so that is the colonial period. Moving on to the post-independence period, there were a lot of shifts wherein they tried to focus more on the welfare rather than just providing them with vocational training. What happens with vocational training is a lot of the time the child welfare or the child's basic rights, those things were ignored a lot. Okay, so sorry. So in order to focus more on the welfare of the child and proper development of the child, lot of models were formed and lot of legislative milestones were considered. Okay, so the first thing is Children Act of 1960, which was mainly applied to union territories, and they introduced this concept of juvenile court, which more focus more on rehabilitation rather than providing punishment. Okay, so for them, children in conflict with law and children in need of care and protection, these two things are different concepts. Please remember that. Children in conflict with law or child in conflict with law is a person or a child below the age of 18 who has committed a crime, or someone who is being deviant in nature. Okay, that is going against the law of the land. Whereas children in need of care and protection are those children who are either abandoned by their family, okay, or who beg, who are in the streets, okay. They are not provided with the basic necessities they require. They might not have committed any crimes. Okay, so these are the two distinctions that they have brought. And for these two types of children, they have provided separate institutions. And as I mentioned here, they've distinguished between delinquent children and neglected children. And this particular act established this concept of juvenile courts, wherein juvenile cases would be handled in a child-friendly manner. And there were a lot of special institutions that were created, like observation homes, special schools, children's homes, all for the custody of these juvenile children or children in conflict with law, and for their rehabilitation. Okay, so if you look into observation homes and special schools, all of this observation homes are mainly for child in conflict with law, and special homes are for child in need of care and protection. Okay, so more than providing them with punishment like sending them to prison as such, they focus more on counseling the children. What led them to commit that particular crime? What was the circumstance? How those circumstances can be changed? Then providing them with proper vocational training, education, develop skills in them so that once they are out of that particular shelter home or observation home, they are able to survive in the world rather than committing crime. Okay, so it more focused on to social reintegration rather than providing imprisonment to them. So this is the JJ Act's small gist. I didn't want to put each and every amendment of the act as such into different slides, so I put it into tabular format. If you look into the JJ Act of 1986, the age definition was for boys below the age of 16 and for girls below the age of 18. But when that act was amended again in 2000, it became an uniform wherein for both boys and girls, age below 18 were considered as child in conflict with law. Okay, and with 2015 and 21, there were no much changes related to age. If you look into the key institutions, 1986, there was only Juvenile Welfare Board. It was in 2000 when Juvenile Justice Board as well as Child Welfare Committees were introduced. It was further strengthened in 2015. And when it comes to the Amendment Act of 2021, the district magistrates would oversee adoption and monitoring. So one thing with shelter homes is that you can adopt the children who are in need of care and protection. So it is the district magistrate who has the power to oversee how whether the adoption process is proper, whether the people who are adopting are safe or not, and all related things. Now moving on to the trial of juveniles. Mostly all of it looked into the reformatory approach. And if you look into the JJ Act of 2000, no adult trial was there for children below the age of 18. However, in 2015, if a child between the age of 16 to 18 committed any heinous crime, adult trials could be provided. Okay, this was post the Nirbhaya case, because I'm sure all of you would have followed the news during that time. As Charlotte mentioned, it was the juvenile who seemed to be more violent in that particular case. And since he was just given um, juvenile home as a punishment kind of a thing, in order to be rehabilitated, there was a lot of public demand wherein they stated that children between the age of 16 to 18 nowadays do have a better knowledge, do have a better understanding of what is right and wrong. So if they have committed any heinous acts, they should be given adult trials as such. Okay. So based upon the nature of the crime, the JJ board would decide whether it should be an adult trial, or it can be tried in the JJ board as such. Okay. And in the 2021, they clarified the serious offenses concept, and they have properly mentioned what are the serious offenses and should they be again treated as adults or as children. Okay. Moving on to the adoption process. In the year of 1986, it was not specifically addressed as such, but in 2000 and 2015, if you look into, there were a lot of procedures for foster care as well as adoption. But since there were a lot of trafficking as such happening, there were a lot of people who would come for adoption but then trade the children for human trafficking. In order to stop that, and for better adoption and faster adoption uh, process to happen, the district magistrate was given the authority to handle the adoptions. That happened in 2021. And again, looking into the police handling the cases related to juvenile delinquency in the year of 1986, it was the general police who would handle the cases related to such cases. But in 2000, they suggested that juvenile police units, which is known as JPU, was formed, and this special juvenile police unit would be the ones who would handle the cases. Again, in 2021, with the amendment of the act, they stated that non-cognizable offenses could be given punishment for 3 to 7 years. Okay. And again, they will look into how heinous that particular crime was. Okay. So if you look into the concept of juvenile justice as such, they did not want to punish the child because that child would have a future. Rather, they try to rehabilitate and reform the child. This is what the adult prisons also do, but then they are put into jails. And the main thing to segregate the adults and the juveniles was because the children should not learn from adults. If you look into the theories as such of juvenile delinquency, most of behavior, including criminal behavior, is something that we learn from other people. So there are chances that if an adult and a juvenile is put together into a prison, them imitating the adult would be more, and that could lead to heavy consequences in the future. So what is the principles of juvenile justice? Presumption of innocence. In India, juvenile justice system basically believes that any child below the age of 18 is considered to be innocent, and they might not have that criminal mind as such to do things. And most of the times, if they commit crimes, it is because of certain circumstances. Okay. And there is this concept of dignity and worth. Every child that is being trialed as such in the JJ board, or trying to be put into reformation or rehabilitation, should be treated with dignity, and they should feel that they are worth as a citizen. They shouldn't feel worthless as such. Okay. And mostly juvenile names are not mentioned because that process of stigmatization should not be there. If you guys remember again the Nirbhaya case, everyone just mentioned that criminal, that offender as juvenile, and not the name. Okay, the names of the juvenile should not be put out into the public, because chances of stigmatization, future not getting jobs, not having a family, etc., all of these would be affected. So in order to not go through those trauma and everything, most of the times their names are either changed, or they are not revealed out into the public. Again, if you look into the Nirbhaya case, the child who spent 3 years in the home, in the observation home, he has moved on in his life. His name is changed. His identity is not revealed to anyone. And as per reports, he is working in some place related to whatever skills he has developed from the observation homes. Okay, and it is the family's responsibility. That main focus is there, because most of the children learn from their family, be it morals, be it values, be it the laws that we follow. That is why this principle of juvenile justice mainly focuses on family responsibility. Okay, so again, if you look into whether juvenile justice provides punishment, it is mostly more of reformation or rehabilitation that they try to look into. Okay, and as I mentioned earlier, there was a lot of discussions, there were a lot of protests that during Nirbhaya case, that a more harsher punishment should be given to the juvenile. But then and also there were discussions that the age should be reduced to 16, because most of them believe that nowadays, since children are more into technology, and they have a lot of exposure of social media, they do know certain things which mostly even the adults wouldn't be having any idea about. So therefore there was a lot of discussion that the age should be reduced to 16. But the UN child related international related laws state that a child below the age of 18 is considered a person below the age of 18 is considered to be a child. So it might violate the UNCRC, and that is why the age was not lowered to 16, and it is still maintained as 18 itself. Some of the challenges that we face is there are a lot of cases related to juvenile delinquency, and that is why the JJ board as well as the child welfare committees are overburdened with cases. Okay, and also I guess most of you would have watched this movie Master, wherein they have clearly shown how uh, children below the age of 18, or even they might be above the age of 18 also, but then their certificates are fake to show that they are juveniles. Okay, so these things have been on a rise. Identifying whether a person is a child or not, again, the JJ board has to go through a lot of procedures, because of which there are a lot of cases that they are overburdened with. Okay, so that is one of the greatest challenge that the JJ board or the juvenile justice as such in India faces. And there is lack of trained professionals. Um, I guess most of has. Is there anyone who has visited an observation home in this group? Anyone? Can I get an answer, please? Has anyone visited a shelter home or an observation home?
You mean like the shelter homes or the
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
there is something. Uh,
Yeah.
kind of, yeah, I have.
So what did you feel when you visited that particular place? How was it? Did it seem like whatever we are studying in the theory as such?
Ma'am, I was a journalist before, so I went there as a journalist to write an article.
Okay, how was the experience is what I'm asking.
So this is a shelter home in Kakanat.
Okay.
And I received an information that that these children were suffering from some kind of infections because there were about 100 to 110 children, and they only had one bathroom
Okay.
there. And there were some other
Oh,
details too, which had led to the infection. So that was the story I wrote. And also I visited Mahila Mandiram where I have seen a lot of victims. You know, we have got a case for a case then
I guess, Charlotte, your voice is breaking. Is it my internet issue or is it for the same for everyone? Um, okay. Now, as Charlotte mentioned, this concept of overcrowding is something that is again seen in most of these observation homes as well as shelter homes. Okay. There are a lot of children, especially when it comes to metropolitan cities, wherein lot of children are found on the streets. Okay, there are a lot of juvenile crimes that are happening, and what happens is there are not many number of homes or shelter homes as such that have been developed by the government for these children. Okay, so there is lack of that, there is overcrowding, and there is lack of trained professions. Most of the people who are there to take care of these children uh, wouldn't be having a proper child psychology or child development related, I wouldn't say degree as such, but experience at least with children. Okay, so there are chances that they try to ill treat the children. Okay, as Charlotte mentioned, the concept of cleanliness and all of those things also again leads to them getting affected. Okay, so this lack of trained professionals and this concept of stigmatization of juveniles, as I mentioned, the people who are caretakers, they themselves try to or tend to stigmatize these children, which again would affect their development as such. Okay, that attitude, okay, that people are not going to accept me the way I am, even if I change also they will still consider me as a criminal as such, is something that would go on to their mind. Okay, and I've already covered this point of observation homes functioning like prison, and there is weak monitoring and corruption. Okay, so all of these things are the major challenges that is found in juvenile justice as such. This is what I wanted to have a case study for discussion, but then not many of you were into discussion, so I'm skipping this part. Okay. If all of you can take a screenshot of this or take a picture of this, it would be great. These are some of the landmark cases. I would want you to please go and refer to these cases or read more about it. Okay, wherein they've spoken about rights of children in custody, determining the age of juveniles, controversy over juvenile convicts. Okay, so please do take a screenshot of this. Please do read upon these cases. It will be really helpful for you all to get a better understanding as to why this age of 18 is considered, I mean, the age below 18 is considered as a child. Why is there a separate JJ Act for children? And why rehabilitation is focused more than punishment. All of those aspects is covered in these landmark cases. Okay, so before I conclude, I would be dropping in a link in the message box. Give me a minute.